Kia ora everyone, welcome to our webinar today on images. We're going to start off with looking at how you can add images one by one in the system, and then take a look at some of our tools that let you add them in bulk to save you time when you're doing all your digitization projects. We're then going to look at some tips on how you can manage your image folders. Then we're going to take a quick look as well at the end of all of that into how to solve common problems that show up for your images. So it's going to be a whirlwind tour. For some of you, it might be something new, and you might be not familiar with how to add images at all. So there's a little bit in here, hopefully, for everyone. I've opened up an object record. This is something that we've got in our demo copy of Vernon. It's one of my favorite records because I love the idea of someone previously deciding in Vernon to catalog an office fork. So I do enjoy this one, but we're going to add another image, which is definitely not correct at all. It's a vase image. I had a folder that has got a vase image in here, and it's going to be added to our object. So to add one item at a time, we're going to go and open up the record we want to add the picture to. And then we open up the photo, audio, visual references window. So Vernon works by linking to where your image is. It doesn't try and copy it. It doesn't hold it itself. It keeps the memory of where that image is stored. So it uses the file path. So what we see here is a little thumbnail, which is Vernon copying a little smaller version of your picture and displaying it. But as soon as I double click on this, it's going to where that image is stored and it's opening it up. So Vernon's not taking the image, it's just recording that link. So double clicking will open it. And if I wanted to add a new one, I need to create that link from Vernon to where that image is stored, right? So I need to create that relationship. In the photo audio visual references window, I find the fastest way to do this is find a new blank line and use the go to button or the toolbar to open up a new photo record. If you have an older version of Vernon, this go-to button might have been located down in the bottom right corner of your screen. I've now got a chance to make this new photo record, and the key thing is to use this digital file name, right? So I'm telling Vernon where that photo lives. Click into here and then click on the folder icon, and it will open up your file explorer and you can choose where that image is kept. You can actually drag and drop your image onto this little box at the bottom here. So if I open up the folder where my image is kept, I can click on it and drag it onto this gray box here. So you see it's all crossed out until I come into this box here. And then it will add my image for me. So it depends on what you prefer. If you want to drag and drop, you can do so. I tend to prefer just clicking the folder and then finding the image that I want to add. But you can drag and drop your image into Vernon. You can add a caption. So this is just something that helps you search for it later, or if you're displaying your image on browser or online, it might harvest this. Your organization might have rules about what kind of information you'll be putting into your database about different images. Another key field here is your publication status. So down on the left, there's an option to choose. Is it no public access, restricted, or full? So if you are publishing from Vernon to any online collections, you might decide that, well, this image is a conditioned photo. I don't want this to go on our public website. And so you would say no public access. But if it's something that's a high quality picture that you want to have displayed, you can choose full public access. So yeah, again, choosing which one is the best status. If you don't have to publish, you might not have to worry about this at all, but doing it now might save you issues when you do decide to go online in future. There's a couple of ways you can do this. I always just like to close the window and say yes to saving, because then I don't have to worry about it. You can also hit save and then close, but you'll notice that when I do that, it immediately puts the image into my object for me. And I can click back on that identification window and I now have two images, 1 and 2. A new feature that we've put in is that when you double click on one, you can now pan while in this viewer as well to the other images. So that's useful when you have a lot of images and you want to start looking through them. You can open the viewer and just pan through it. Again, because it only shows one image at a time, We also have a viewer up in the top right. There's a display thumbnails button, which just says image. And this opens up a little window that you can have sit next to you that shows you all of the pictures that are in that record. And you can make that smaller or larger as needed. So sometimes when you're in windows where you don't have any images, you can have that sit next to you and you can still see the picture for each record. Really great in browse lists. So I can save this record and my image has been added. So I can go back and we can see that I still have those two. So that's how you can add one image at a time. But for the most part, when you're adding images, you're doing them in bulk, or you have lots of images to add. I've made a selection already of images. So I've got some records that are 2012.1, that's the accession number we have assigned. And I have all of these lovely images to attach. You might notice that they all have the accession number first, followed by an underscore. So underscores is something that we don't have used in our accession numbers. A lot of accession numbers for our clients include dashes or dots. So we would recommend using something that isn't used in any part of your accession number. The reason is Vernon will then know immediately where the accession number finishes because it will have the same character each time. So Vernon will read 2012.1, aha, I've hit an underscore. I can ignore everything after that. This is my accession number. Or in this case, 2012.2, I've hit the underscore. Condition photo I can ignore. So you basically still lets you put detail in. You can put anything you'd like afterwards. It is good to be consistent with how your organization does it. Some people use P1, P2, P3 to indicate multiple photos for the same object. Others use A, B, and C. Others do descriptors, or in the case of someone who's got like an artist name or a whole range of other things. But as long as you keep using the same consistent character to highlight when the accession number finishes, Vernon can do something I think is quite magic. So let's import all of these images. We can close this. I generally start with a good rule of thumb that before you do any bulk tools, make sure you work from the gray screen, right? If you have a record open that you're wanting to change in a bulk tool, Vernon will think that it's locked, that someone's still trying to save or edit it. So it's always just a good case to close any of your open records down so you're not going to have anything go wrong and you won't have a record you're trying to change open in the background. So bulk tools, gray screen. So we're going to go to tools, down to imaging, import and link images. Right, so we're going to do an import and link of images. So the first thing we need to decide is where are we pointing Vernon? I can open up my copy of the images folder. And I can point it to that entire folder where I keep all my images, and Vernon will go through and find everything that has an accession number and try and match it to an object record. In my case today, I know exactly what folder I'm wanting to link. I don't necessarily want to start going through all of the folders, but you can run it through your entire collection of images and see what's out there that needs to be linked. In my case, it was everything inside of the 2012 folder. You can see that I've ticked include subfolders. So that's the case of if you want to find everything in a top folder like images, and it will go and open up every single folder underneath that and see if it can find any matches. You can link with accession number or with system ID. Most of the time we tend to use accession number because it's a human readable, it's a human readable number. We use accession numbers as our daily practice in museums. But if for some reason you're wanting to create records where there's duplicate accession numbers and there's uncertainty about which record it might go to, you can use system ID as well. Map from and map to exists for people who have slashes in their accession numbers. This is because Windows doesn't let you save file names with slashes. So you can actually say, let's say wherever you see a dash, that's going to become a slash. So if you do end up using slashes in your accession numbers, you have the option to use a different character to save it and then change it in your accession number. So that way you can get around Windows naming conventions for your images as well and still use this tool. Filename suffix. So remember how I said that Vernon needs to know what character happens after your accession number, and that's when it knows to stop. Aha, this is the same character, and everything after this I ignore. Filename suffix is where we tell Vernon what number to ignore. You don't have to have this memorized by any means. In fact, our help tells you. So if I go and hit on F1 on my keyboard, it's going to open up our Vernon help, and it will tell you what to use. If you're in doubt, it's actually going to be the very last one in the list. I'll just copy that over and paste it back into Vernon. I've got it nice and large so that everyone can see it, hopefully. So I like to think of this, and this is by no means the technical explanation. Hey, pay attention to whatever is in the quotes. In this case, it's our underscore, but if you use a different character, you can put that in here. And this is a 0. It looks like an O, but it's a 0 and an X, and ignore any number of characters afterwards. So 0x. And it does have to be capitalized X. But again, you can go into the help, copy that little formula, and you can put in whatever character you want to use. We're just saying to Vernon, ignore everything after this character. You can set the publication status here for everything that you're importing. So if you know that it's all images that are public or not to be public, for my case, I know that they're all fully available for the web, but you can also leave this blank. We're all set up. We're ready for Vernon to rifle through all of those folders and find all the matches. When I hit display matches, it's going to go through and it's found 17 matches. It's saying that one of them wasn't added. And you might notice this is the one that we added manually. It said no matching objects found. The benefit to this tool as well, if I ran it on all of the images folder, is it ignores things that are already linked to Vernon. So if the object has already been added, it's going to not add it again, which does save you a bit of hassle. So in my case, it's ignore the bars because it didn't have an accession number. But even if it did have one, it would not have added it because it has already been added to Vernon. When I close that little report, it shows me a list of all of the matches that it's found. And I can click on Create. And it's going to go through and create all of those different image records for me, one at a time. You can use this tool to not link directly to objects. So there's a little tick box of link images to objects. So if you wanted to bulk import a lot of images for a person or for an event or an exhibition, you can use the same tool. It'll create those photo files, and then you can link those photo records to your events or your exhibitions. But if you just want to bulk create all of those photo records, you can untick this and it won't link them to your objects. So that's all finished. And what it's doing is it's opening up a list of my objects and it's opening a list of my images. My 14 objects and my 16 images. So I added, for a couple of these, 2 images to one object. I added 2 different images to this one object. Honestly, I've done this for quite a lot of images in past. I've run it through entire systems and come up with hundreds and hundreds of images that it's found. Sometimes it's good to be more specific because then you don't start creating photo records for things where you're not entirely sure you should be linking them to the objects. But it is a really useful tool to making sure everything's set up right. So there's a couple of things to be aware of when you are adding images to Vernon. We recommend no more than 2000 pixels on the longest side. So that's actually quite small. It's good for the web, but it's not a very large image. We don't recommend adding TIFFs or larger scale images to Vernon as a photo. What we would recommend for large images is to add them as a document reference. So if we click on document reference, you can link external files. So you can link high quality TIFFs and all of those in here. The reason is again, to make this thumbnail, Vernon is taking that original photo and compressing it down into a thumbnail and generating that. And each time you do a report, it's going back to that original size. So it can take time when you're opening List Manager or doing reporting if you have extremely large images. For some sites, obviously, if you've only got a collection of about 1,000, 2,000 objects, you have a higher tolerance. For others where you might be closer to 1 million objects, this can have a really big impact. So our rule of thumb is 2000 pixels on the longest side. Otherwise, attach them as an external file. And you can click on that field. And when you use that options button or that little arrow, it'll open up your file explorer and you can choose, I don't know, let's choose an image. It's still linked to the object. You can still open it. You still have that reference to that TIFF. It's just not displaying in that thumbnail. The rest of the advice we have about images is mostly related to where you're keeping it in your folder structure. So you might have noticed that all of mine are grouped by year, mostly because we recommend that you don't put more than 500 images into one folder. It's a very arbitrary number. Obviously, we're not going to break if it goes to 501 or 502, but it's about the amount that you can easily scan through as a person. It's also less pressure for Vernon to be trying to scan through that folder to find the correct image when it's trying to look through. It's also really important that you make sure that you don't do what I'm doing, which at the moment is on my C drive. But in your organizations, you want to make sure that this is on a shared drive that everybody can access. If you're linking images from your desktop, that's great, but you're the only person who will ever see them. No one else will be able to open that. It's good to make sure that Vernon has access to the place that you're sharing, saving your images, and that other people have access to where you're saving that image. Generally, it's a good idea to come up with an overall folder, in our case, images, and it's like known to everyone at the organization that uses Vernon or might come in contact with that folder that these are linked to Vernon. The reason is, as I said, Vernon's not copying that image, it's remembering where it lives. So if I rename these folders or I rename the image, that link is broken. So Vernon will lose where that image is. So it's really important. So everything is together in one place and people know that these are linked to Vernon and they need to be treated differently and more formally than you might with other images where you notice a spelling mistake in the name. So we've broken it down by year of accession. There's a whole range of ways you can do it. Some people have grouped them by artist names, or they've created ranges of numbers like T100 to T1000. It's ideal that you group your folders by something that won't change. You don't want to name it by exhibitions because exhibitions may change or objects might move between different things. So you want to choose something that's going to be consistent and always the same so that you're not tempted to rename things. So I'm going to do a bit of breaking of things now that I've got them all nice and set up. I'm going to work on destroying some of the links in Vernon so you can have an idea of how we can work. So one of them is that we have this lovely folder called Fumpston, and me looking at this going, well, actually it needs to be Rodney Fumpston so that I know this is the artist's name. So I'm going to rename this here, which is immediately going to go and break all of my lovely image links inside of here. But I know that I've done this, so I still have time to save this before I go and cause someone else a headache in future. I can see that I use a / my Fumpston, and so I can actually use something we called text find and replace. In previous versions, it was called text update. So text find and replace is very similar to text update. The only difference is in text update, you have a choice on the side to choose find and replace, and you'll see pretty much the same screen. We're going to choose the photo AV file. And I forgot my own rule. I got to close my windows before I do my bulk tools. In this case, I want to find everything that had Fumpston in its file path. And I want to change it to Rodney Fumpston. So it's going to find all instances of that and replace it with what is now the correct folder name. I want to choose the digital file name field, which is that one field we had in Photo AV where we could record where that image is living. And double clicking moves it over to the fields to search. Now, I'm currently running this on nothing. And I think if I click update, it's going to say, there's no records. What are you doing? We need to choose all of the photo fields that we have. And I find the fastest way to do this is to open List Manager and go to the Records menu, All Records. And that's going to bring back every image that you have in your collection. So in my case, my demo system is pretty small. It's only 438. But in your systems, it might be larger. But that's okay. You can also cheat if you have a really large system. You can go and do a search. Just do a blank search in the all text index, and it will bring back everything. So you can bypass it and get every single record in your collection without having List Manager if you need to. And we're going to click on Update. So here's an example that it's found. There's the file, that folder that was originally there. And I can say replace all, and I'm actually pretty confident with how it's found that. I can click replace for all records. Alternatively, you can keep going one by one and skip. It kind of works like a text replace in Word or any of the other Microsoft products. So that's finished. It's found 11 photos that previously would have been broken and are now fixed. So I have now got all of those image links working again. If I go to one of those objects, any of these, we can see now that that image has the correct folder, whereas before it would have been broken. If I was really mean and decided to undo what I've just done and rename that back to Fumpston, and I can refresh this, I can see that there's an error loading the media because Vernon has been unable to find that image. So you might come across these on your casual exploration of your database. And so one of those is it's really great when you know what's gone exactly wrong. You recognize that the file path's changed. If only we're always that lucky. Unfortunately, you're often dealing with people who haven't told you this is what they've done, or it's been a long time ago that it's happened and you've forgotten and they've forgotten. Vernon still remembers, but it doesn't remember where things have gone. So we have a few tools that we can use to make life a little easier. One is I'd recommend this page in our help. So this is an article that works through different system monitor commands you can use. So this is a bit more programmatic, but it's a command that you can put through, and you do often have to have supervisor access or a higher access to get to system monitor. So you can always refer this up the chain if you're not having all of that access, but it's definitely something that is really useful for doing cleanup of your images in bulk. One is that you can create a report on all of the broken images. So I'll just run that one. I'll just copy this lovely argument here. And we're going to close that and go to Tools, System Maintenance, System Monitor. I'm just going to open up this box down here. I can paste in my code and it's going to show me all of the broken images. So we can see actually there's a few here, not just my Rodney Fumpston ones. And this means that I have something that I can work through. I know exactly where things are broken and I can start identifying what might have happened. And so there's actually options here that will let you delete broken images, because it might be that they were deleted. It could be that those were renamed and they're going to be picked up or already added. Sometimes if they've been renamed, they might have been re-added when someone did the import and link images because it's a different name. So sometimes you might want to delete the photo because it's broken and delete any reference to it from the object. So you can use this option of run AV fix broken AV. And you can also do the same with the run AV fix broken ob, but it doesn't delete the photo. It just removes any links for the object record. So we're going to clean this up fully, close my report, go back to my system monitor. And this time, if I run the broken AV, it's going to take that same list of records and it's going to fully delete all of those. So they're all gone. I could then do that import and link imaging tool again and choose to do it for the entire images folder. And then if it can find a match, it will add it because I've removed all of the broken links. And then asterisk, single quote, underscore, single quote, 0, capital X. And yes, it did take me a while to memorize that. And it's going through, and you can see all the not added is ones where either the object number isn't something that exists or it can find a match to, or alternatively, they're already, that image is already linked. So only 3 matches, not bad. So I didn't pick up my Rodney Thumbson works, and that's because each of those didn't have my lovely accession number at the front. They were just written as text. So it's always a good idea when you do have your images to make sure your accession number's first. So when you do clean up like this, it works amazingly every time. But I was able to add these 3 object records. I guess a useful one that I'd finish off on is that double clicking opens it, which is really useful, and you can zoom and pan and even like make it fit to your window as well once you're in there. But I find properties is really useful as well. So at first it's just a lot of metadata, but it does tell you at the top where it's found. So you can go and find that file really quickly. It also tells you how big the original image is. And then you have all of the metadata about that as well. But I find the first 2 the most informative for what I'm looking for. How big is the image and where can I find it in my normal life? Thanks again for coming along to the imaging webinar. It's always really great to have you guys join in.